Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Cantor Dan Mutlu from Central Synagogue, for those I haven't met. And of course, we are here to remember and to lay to rest our beloved Alice Heyman, a woman of fierce conviction, radiant spirit, and unwavering purpose. Alice's passing brings to us a close of a life marked by vision, courage, and an unshakable dedication to justice. And though we were graced to walk part of the journey with her, it's now time to say goodbye. We know that there are no words or prayers that can fully contain the force of Alice's life, nor the space she now leaves behind. Her presence was so vibrant, it was unforgettable, rooted in determination, adorned with flair, and always guided by a deep belief in what is right. And yet, in the midst of our loss, we know that there is comfort. There's comfort in memory, in song, prayer, and in the company of one another. It's in the spirit that we come together to honor a life lived boldly, to cherish the many ways Alice touched each of us, and to begin the sacred act of saying farewell. This is a very unique group. Each person here carries a part of Alice's story, and it is as family, as friends, as caregivers, as fellow travelers. And we just want to name those who have been a part of Alice's life, and not to exclude anyone, but just to cast a wide net of her legacy and those who shared in her love. So I mentioned her brother Michael, family and friends, Joe, Adam, Stephen, John, Stephanie, Caroline, William, Jilly, Marjorie, Robert, Nancy, Bruce, Nancy, Andrew, and Dan. Each of us is a living testament to the legacy that Alice leaves behind. And so we begin our time together, not with a psalm as we might normally do, but with a prayer in Hebrew that became a personal blessing during the last chapter of Alice's life. Alice came into my life around 5 years ago. I was fortunate enough to know her and to visit her. And often during these visits, I would sing the words of Hashkivenu, a prayer for peace and protection, for shelter throughout the night, for renewal in the morning. So we ask you, O God, that these ancient words wrap us in the same comfort and hope they once brought to Alice. May they guide her gently into eternal rest. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Leshalom, Leshalom. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Leshalom. V'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim, Uleshalom, Uleshalom. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Ufros alei Sukat shlomei Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Adonai roi lo echsar binot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot inahaleni nafshi shovev. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love one another. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit that Alice gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our saddest moments, our darkest hours, we know that some of her light and her warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, what death has touched. There are no words sweeter than those of loved ones who come to mourn and remember Alice. At this time, I call up members of Alice's family as well as friends. In this order, Bruce, Cheryl, Stephanie, and June.
And thank you. This is hard. Alice was bedridden for her last 5 years, and she was happy. We all owe a debt to the people who made her happiness possible. It does take a village. So before I start, I want to recognize Stephanie, who gave her time and energy and more time and more energy to Alice's well-being. June and Audrey, who so lovingly cared for Alice. Florence, for her kind treatments. My brother Bob, for his many visits to Alice's bedside. And Cantor Dan, whose songs with Alice brightened her last years. For everyone I don't know, I am Bruce Judson. My father, Mush Judson, of blessed memory, was Hench's son and Alice's cousin. To me, Alice was like a favorite young aunt whose life was intertwined with mine. At age 67, it's hard for me to remember a time when Alice was not in my life. So today is the final chapter in a 60-plus year relationship, a relationship that enriched and helped to shape the arc of my life. There have been just two people that called me Brucey. One was my mother of blessed memory, and the other was Alice. And conversations with Alice did not finish the way they did with other people. It was not, I will talk to you soon, thanks for calling, or even love you. Alice always had the last word. It was always, now, Brucey, listen to me. And I will come back to those conversations shortly. My bar mitzvah passed in a whirl, but one of the few things I vividly remember is Alice driving up to our house in her Mercedes-Benz. It was about a year after Oscar's passing. She must have been 33. She was vibrant, still young, exciting, and flamboyant. On our living room wall, we have a watercolor painting of Hillel with calligraphy of his famous statement, "If I am not for myself, who will be? If I am only for myself, what good am I? If not now, when?" The painting was Alice's wedding gift to Nancy and I. And for 35 plus years, wherever we lived, it has accompanied us. A few days ago, as I looked at the painting, I realized something new. When we were married, Alice did not just give us a painting. She gave us a statement of her values, which she lived by example. If not now, when? Alice was a person of action. Now, Brucey, listen to me, was always followed by what Alice said I was going to do, because Alice was all about doing. She did, and she did what she thought was right. I think of Alice from two sides. One was her life in the larger world, and the other was our relationship. Cheryl will talk about Alice's advocacy to foster social equality. So I want to talk for a moment about the other aspect of Alice's broader life. As I think most of you know, for 40 years, Alice was the publicly anonymous owner of the crown of the Andes, which she inherited from her father. By the early 2000s, Alice had some financial issues, but she also had 5 pounds of gold and 442 emeralds weighing 846.15 carats. She had one of South America's most famous and significant artifacts, which dated to 1660, and certainly the only item like it in private hands anywhere in the world. She owned the storied crown of the Andes. And Alice made a decision. I know about it because I was there. Alice could have quickly become immensely wealthy if she had been willing to sell the crown to a private collector. She was not interested then, and she would never be open to that idea. She wanted the crown, she wanted to be comfortable and nothing more. She wanted the crown to be available to the world. In our era of centimillionaires and billionaires, she did something we so rarely hear about. She said to herself and to me, I am fortunate and it's enough. I will have what I need, and the rest is for the larger world. In Hillel's terms, she looked beyond herself and gave up personal gain in the process. She thought of the common good. So Alice launched a multi-year effort where by sheer force of will, the crown ended up where it now resides as a centerpiece exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where it will always be accessible to everyone from across the globe. My personal relationship with Alice had its own meaning. When we are young and starting out, most of us don't want to be given something that we haven't earned. What we do want is the opportunity to prove ourselves. We want the chance to show that we can do a job, to shine, to rise to an occasion. Many times, Alice created unique opportunities for me. In particular, the first two stand out. Toward the end of my freshman year at college, I was home for Passover. Alice was with us. Alice asked about my summer plans, which were then uncertain. The next day, she called a friend who was the head of a prestigious think tank in New York City. 2 days later, I had an interview and a special summer internship. 2 years later, I was home for Passover toward the end of my junior year at Dartmouth. I had taken most of the year off to work in Washington for the House Energy Committee. Again, Alice asked about my summer plans. I told her what I most wanted was to work at the Aspen Institute, which had an annual summer conference on energy policy in Aspen, involving former cabinet officers and the like. But of course, that was impossible. Alice did not know the meaning of the word impossible, which is a way of thinking I learned from her. In any case, same story. Alice called a friend, and a few days later, I was interviewed by the head of special projects at the Aspen Institute. So I spent the summer in Aspen discussing energy policy with people way above my pay grade. Alice had opened a big door, and it turned out to be even bigger than I or anyone expected. And for example, that fall, the Dartmouth Alumni Magazine profiled my work and my Alice-enabled summer adventure. There's much more. I have my own book of adventures with Alice in Wonderland. But whatever snowball of good fortune I had, it was Alice that started and enabled that ball to roll. And some of my most gratifying moments came later, when I had the chance to repay Alice and to do some tangible things for her. Nancy and I are both from large families. We have 22 nieces and nephews, plus 2 daughters. Whenever I get a call from any one of them, I think of Alice. How can I help you, I say. We can make it possible, I say. I try to pass on what Alice gave to me. A few closing thoughts. The true name of the crown of the Andes is the crown of Our Lady of the Assumption of Popayán. In 1940, the Pope gave the monastery in Popayán, Colombia, where the crown resided, a special dispensation to sell the crown, to raise money. In pre-war America, the crown had a widespread, mysterious appeal. In 1937, when the crown was displayed in Detroit, 225,000 people, or 15% of the city's entire population, was said to have come to see it. In our era, 6 million people visit the Met annually. Now, thanks to Alice, over the next decade, tens of millions of people from all faiths will see this remarkable religious icon. The world will always have access to it. In one of the most central decisions of her life, Alice was true to the values Hillel detailed and those of our tradition. She looked beyond herself. Our troubled, chaotic, me-centered world needs more people like Alice. To me, a life of merit is when you leave this world a little better off than you found it. Alice lived a life of merit. Our world benefited from the equality she advocated, from her bias for action, from the values she held and lived, and from her gifts to the people who knew her and to our larger society. One final thing, and I so wish it was not the case. Today, this one time, I get to have the last word. Now, Alice, listen to me. Everybody here loves you, and you will always be a blessed memory. Thank you.
Hard to put 43 years into 3 minutes, but I'll try. Alice and I met in May of 1982 at a time of major turmoil and a turning point in my life. I was a young, doe-eyed Wall Street professional who had just flamed out of her first major job and didn't know what to do, and whose family in Chicago, especially her father, Oscar, was saying, "Come home, let us help you." Independent-minded me, on the other hand, heard, "Come home, get married, forget about this career woman stuff. We'll take care of you." And I wasn't having it. I wasn't sure what to do and didn't know many people in New York besides my college and grad school friends. And I didn't really know what skills I had at that time or even how to go about finding a job. As fate would have it, I saw an article in the Times in which Mickey Siebert, who at that time was a New York State banking superintendent, announced her candidacy for the US Senate. I didn't know anything about her except that she was a Wall Street pioneer, and also knew what a banking superintendent was because I had interned for the Illinois State Banking Department during the 2 summers following my junior and senior year in college. So I decided that until I could figure out what I was going to do, I could at least volunteer. So I showed up at the campaign headquarters, and there I met Alice, who looked at me when I walked in and said, "Do you know where you are? Are you sure that you belong here? Do you know that she's a Republican woman?" I said, "Yeah, we have Republicans in Chicago, and my family is a part of that." "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I want to be a part of this." And so I became Alice's assistant as she was doing events for Mickey Siebert's campaign. Although Mickey did not win the Republican primary that summer, through Alice, I was introduced to the women's movement and to politics here in New York, including the National Women's Political Caucus, the Women's Forum, the Financial Women's Association, and lo and behold, I found my footing and my home here in New York. Alice opened her heart, she opened her home, and she opened her arms to me, whom she did not know other than the fact that I appeared to be this out of place young Black woman showing up in this Republican campaign. But we got along. We remained connected after that summer. And during the years, she became a major mentor to me and to other people, including President Obama's former ambassador to Switzerland, Azita Rahi, to many people who were a part of her Friends of Bill groups across the country. She was forever sending out words of support through daily emails. She embraced us all. always had a kind word, always welcomed us. And in many ways, she became a mentor to me personally. She became that godmother that we always need to have to guide you, to let you know when you aren't quite on the right path. And then, more importantly, to be there to hug you after you made that mistake that she told you you were going to make. And you went ahead and did it anyway. And she would say, Tootsie, you are going to get through this. Remember, rain is only good when it's wet. And I, go, she was right. She was also always welcoming people, entertaining people, be it in a restaurant or in her home. And I recall my excitement when she said, I want you to help me do Rosh Hashanah dinner one year. I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to learn how to actually cook some of the foods that I like. I really like noodle kugel. So I go over to her home and she says, okay, get me the circular from Zabar's. And I'm thinking we're going to order, whatever it is that we need. No, we ordered the whole meal. I was like, okay, I got this. I got this. But I do have to say, I like to cook. And during that summer, working with her on the Siebert campaign, she did make something for me that I'd never had before. Has anyone ever had a peanut butter omelet? It was absolutely the most interesting but delicious meal that I had ever had. And I made one this morning in Alice's honor. So, Mom, godmother, mentor, thank you for helping to make me the woman that I am today. Both Bruce and Cheryl are very hard acts to follow, so I might as well just sit down now. So when my sister Anne Heyman Kaplan was at Wellesley College, she was asked to write about a memorable character for a freshman English class. She wrote about our Aunt Frances Heyman Wolfe. Andy got a D on the paper, which was entitled Un Numéro, French slang for a character. The professor didn't believe that such a person existed. Aunt Frances even volunteered to go up to Wellesley to present herself to the professor. Well, I will tell you that everything you heard this morning about Alice Heyman was true, as experienced by Bruce and Cheryl. Her obituary in the New York Times gives a very detailed recounting of her extraordinary life. Andy and I are first cousins through our fathers. Alice and I are first cousins. We lived 3 blocks away from each other on Park Avenue. There was enough of an age difference between our parents that Alice and I were brought up very differently. Alice had Dodo, her nurse, and we had our mother, Sylvia. Alice wore white gloves to play in Central Park. Andy and I were rough and tumble kids. Our fathers worked together in the jewelry business. Alice and I were sometimes on the same Fieldston school bus. We celebrated holidays with each other and summers in Long Beach at the big house. Alice was a passing figure in my early life. My niece, Jamie Kaplan, wrote to me that she remembered very fondly Alice coming to dinner at my mother's. Jamie wrote that we never knew when Alice would arrive. Our sirloin steak became mystery meat by the time the door opened and there was Alice. But what fun it was when she finally came. Such laughter and excitement. Jamie kept in touch with Alice long after she married and had a family. Alice had extreme undiagnosed learning disabilities. She was a proud alumna of
Adelphi, although it took sheer determination and many, many years to get the degree. Alice was bountiful and generous to the point that she often found herself without any money. She would call me, Bruce, Margie, and other Heyman relatives and ask for money to pay this bill or that. She was too generous, something that she realized, and enrolled herself in a 12-step Debtors Anonymous program. And so our relationship existed. John and I did not return to New York until we had been married for 8 years. I would bump into Alice on the street. I met Alice one day in front of her OBGYN's office. I pass it frequently, and I remembered so distinctly. I had 3 children at that point, and she told me she was trying to have a child through in vitro fertilization. Nothing happened. Alice did not have any children. I did hear when she had a boyfriend who told Oscar that he was a Rothschild. A detective was hired. Not true. The boy was dismissed. She had another boyfriend whom she loved dearly, a police detective named Timothy Patrick Sullivan, only he was married and had a family. Decades passed, my children grew into adults, and I had a successful career. And then Alice nominated me to hold her healthcare proxy in 2019 and hold other administrative documents. It was then that I really got to know Alice, and I grew to love her very dearly. I suggested a young designer to redecorate her apartment. She had sold the crown and had money to spend on herself. She got exactly what she wanted. The wallpaper was copied from what she originally had, and pink velvet couches were custom made to go with the wallpaper. Alice loved pink. Alice empowered other women as she herself felt empowered. Alice was never afraid to speak out and take a position. You heard about this from Bruce and from Cheryl, and this was confirmed by a note that I received 2 days ago from Liz Kruger, the senator, New York State senator, who contacted me upon hearing that Alice had died. Liz recounted the very unpopular position that she had taken during her first campaign and thanked Alice for joining her fight. Alice encouraged me to fight the Northwell application to build a 40-story building on 77th Street, mid-block to Park Avenue. June and Alice live streamed the Community Board 8 hearing, and with June, Alice wrote to all the council members. Initially, Alice was only in bed because of a drain in an abscess in her leg. I visited her 2 and 3 times a week, and we had fun. We watched the Heyman movies together, and with Bob, we did an 8-part oral history on video with a Dorot social work intern. Cantor Dan visited with her on Zoom and sang with her. Friends called and could not believe that Alice was in bed. Months stretched into years. She had always been so active. Why was she in bed, they asked, as if I was the one keeping her in bed. We had a psychiatrist visit. Alice made mincemeat of the psychiatrist. She got out of there so quickly, she couldn't wait to get to the front door. We had a psychologist, a social worker, and her internist opine on why she wouldn't get out of bed. Finally, everyone concurred that Alice had made the choice not to get out of bed. She enjoyed the tremendous care and love that Audrey and June were giving her. And so it went. The alert and playful Alice became less alert. She was fascinated by shows on Diana and the royal family. When she wasn't watching the royal family, she watched MSNBC, an antique roadshow. Her passing was typical Alice. She went to sleep, had a stroke, and never woke up. But it was a show of her strength and fortitude that she did not stop breathing for 10 days. Hospice sent different people to visit, and each one would tell us that they didn't expect to see her again, that Alice would pass before they had a chance to come back. But they didn't know Alice. 10 days went by. It was like we were holding Shiva, but before the funeral. Bob, Cheryl, Florence, June, and Audrey were there. On the 11th day, June and I were sitting on her bed. I was sitting on one side, and June was on the other side. We were holding her hands. June sang his version of Love Me Tender, Love Me True, and she passed on. It was hard to believe that she was gone. I kept saying to June, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" I had never witnessed somebody die. Alice was Alice. She was a character, and I will miss her for being that. And when she first had the stroke, I said to her, "But Alice, we haven't planned your funeral yet. Alice, why did you pick me? Why did you pick me? You never told me why you picked me." And that was it. I mean, those are the questions that remain outstanding. And we will miss you, and we thank you all for coming. Okay, June.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I did not really expect to say my eulogy because I was not sure if I'm not going to cry because I'm a crybaby. So I'm just going to speak from my heart. Alice is everything to everybody. She wore so many hats in her lifetime. She even had a crown. So she's our queen. But to me, and Audrey, she is our Tootsie Pop. The last 4 years of her life, we took good care of her for 6 years, but for the last 4 years, our relationship with Alice revolved around music. She developed a very strong sense for singing. Maybe she wanted to be a singer. And she loves Karen Carpenters and Frank Sinatra. And every day, I will recline her bed up and I will lie next to her. And I'm going to open the television and play some karaoke. So we will be singing our heart out the whole day. It's easy for me. I don't have to do a lot of things but to sing. And when we're singing together, she held my hand and she said, "Are you going to hold my hand when I go?" I said, "Yes, I will. And I will sing to you when you're leaving. I will be there. I will never leave." But the most beautiful memories that I have are her laughters. I make her laugh a lot. One of my favorite prank is when I go out shopping for groceries, and when I come home, I will tell her, "Alice, I just robbed a bank. I got 4 million in a sack." "Oh," she would say, "and I put them under your bed. You are in trouble." She will laugh endlessly. And that's what I love about her. She will laugh, and I made her happy. Last June, I have to go home to New Jersey where my family are because my papa was sick. So I was away for a few days. And my wife would be calling, when are you coming back? Alice is killing me. I know, I said, she will. And I said, I have a remedy. I recorded some of my songs, so just play it to her. So she would go to bed and sleep and be calm. And my wife Audrey would do that. Never ending June song. It's killing me. Whenever I hear my voice, I would go like, too much. But she loves it. And my papa passed away on June 20th this year. So when I came back, she said, why were you so long? You've gone for how many days? And I said, my papa passed away. Actually, whenever I want to go home to New Jersey, my cousins would ask me, why can't you come? Why can't you come? I'm taking care of Alice. Oh, we will have to come and pick you up and Alice and go to New Jersey together. So I told my cousins, you know, my cousins, my family are killing me because they wanted me to go home to New Jersey once in a while, but I cannot do it. So why don't you just come with me? And she said, oh, so I'm gonna meet your papa. I said, yes. Maybe he will be my next boyfriend. She is something, you know? And that's what I love about Alice. And when I came back from New Jersey after he passed on, I said, Alice, I'm sorry, you just killed your next boyfriend. And we have a laugh together. And she said, I might go after him after all. I will still. I said, okay, it's up to you. Go, girl. So after a few days in July, she had a stroke. She lingered on, she lingered on, she lingered on. Every day, Steffi and I would sit beside her. And it's so hard to watch someone you love so dearly suffer like that. And I said, Alice, one night, I said, Alice, I love you. I will never forget you. And I don't want you to go, but maybe it's time. I know that you don't want to leave us, but you have to go to your dad, Oscar, and Gertrude's. You're free to go, girl. That's how I call her. You know, she loves that when I say go, girl. And the day she passed on, I recorded a song for one last time. And we were sitting there, Steffi and I holding her hand. And I don't know if it's just an imagination, but I think she tilted her head towards me. And I said, this is for you, Alice. We will never forget you. And we will always be there for you, even when you are no longer around. So bear with me. I just want to play this song for one last time for my beloved Tutsi. Tutsi pa. I have so many songs I don't know what to choose, but this is the one I played when she was passing on. This is for you, Tutsi pa. Love me better, love me see, ever let my life complete. I love you so. You just love me. Oh, I don't dance. Love me through all my dreams fulfilled. For my darling, I love you.
and always free. Love me tender and love me Lord. Take me to your arms. For we spare the time and all. Love me tender, love me true. All my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you. I know spring. Love me tender, love me true. Love me I'm yours through all the till the end of time. Love me tender, love me true. All my dreams will fulfill. For my darling, I love you. I always will.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
It was about a couple weeks ago during the reading of the Torah portion known as Pinchas that our dear Alice suffered the debilitating stroke from which she would not recover. That Torah portion includes the story of the daughters of Zelophehad, women who stood before Moses and the entire community to demand their right to inherit their father's land. It was a rare moment when the law was changed for the sake of justice, for the sake of women's rights. It could not have been more fitting that Alice, too, spent her life standing for justice. She believed that the world could be changed, and she devoted herself fully to the work of that change. We've heard how she was a fierce advocate, a founding member of the First Women's Bank of New York City, a political organizer, a rape crisis counselor, and a torchbearer for gender equity. Alice was a voice that could not be silenced. Like the daughters of Zelophehad, she was insistent, unapologetic, and ultimately transformative. Over the past 5 years, I have had the privilege of visiting with Alice virtually, bringing her prayers and updates from Central Synagogue, singing to her, and sharing in the quiet grace of her world. Even confined to her bed, Alice's spirit remained vibrant and strong. She listened, she responded, she felt the music, she sang along, and we connected. Alice was born on June 3rd, 1938, into this family with remarkable legacy. Her father, Oscar, came to this country from Prussia in the 1890s and became a towering success in the world of fine jewelry. His company, Oscar, Heyman and Brothers, continues to shine today. Alice, though, inherited not only the family's business elegance, but also its brilliance. She was the proud custodian of the famed crown, as we've heard, of Andes, which she later gifted to the Met, ensuring that it would be a treasure for the public, not hidden in private hands. Alice was educated at the Ethical Culture Fieldston School, Adelphi University, and the Gemological Institute of America. But her greatest lessons came from the front lines, marching for women's rights, helping victims in crisis, fighting for progress when the world resisted. In 1973, she served as the New York State Representative to the National Women's Political Caucus. She was a loyal supporter of WNET and a devoted member of Central Synagogue, where her presence, spiritually, virtually, and physically, was deeply felt. Alice was flamboyant. She was forceful. She was determined and exacting. She was committed to the world as it should be. And yet, she was also complex. We heard that about 6 years ago, following a serious leg infection, Alice simply chose not to get out of bed again. No doctor, no therapist, no argument could change her mind. People could only surmise and guess as to the reason. Some said it was vanity, others fatigue. But in truth, it was just Alice being Alice. She made that decision as she made all decisions on her own terms. Everything Alice did, she did it her way. She died as she lived, surrounded by love. She was held in the arms and hands of her family and her beloved caretakers, who became her family in every sense of the word. We honor Alice's life, her fierce independence, her boundless heart, and the love that surround her. May her memory be a blessing. May it be as strong and as brilliant as the enduring crown she once carried. Zichrona livracha. Alice's name will be read at Central Synagogue during the first 30 days of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning. And at this time, we're going to offer a prayer on Alice's behalf, the El Malei Rachamim, which asks that God shelter her presence, her spirit, in God's protective, compassionate embrace. And we'll ask you to please rise. El Malei Rachamim, משוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת אליס היימן, שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים, הרחמים, יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. O God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one, Alice Heyman, who has gone into eternity, find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life everlasting. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen.